Great. So, hey guys, thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for waiting. And just wanted to give you some ideas. So, welcome, Edith. Thanks a lot, Edith, for again, joining on a Tuesday night. And I'll go with some introduction on how actually I got introduced to Edith.
Okay.
So, essentially, hey guys, if you can all mute, that would
You don't
be
want to put
superb.
comment.
If you're
Yes.
not talking. Sweet. I'm gonna do some of those. So yeah. So and I actually met Edith through one of my friends, Ania. I mean, I'm sure most of the algorithm students know of her, and Ania introduced me to Edith, and we chatted for a little bit, and we thought that it would be great to bring Edith to our sessions. And just to give a quick intro, Edith is a founder of A Top Career. She is a host of several podcasts. She's a certified professional resume writer and also a global career development facilitator. I hope I'm not butchering these terms. These are very difficult terms. But Edith has helped more than 1,000 people find their meaningful employment in the last 20 years. She has been really working hands-on with students and leaders in general. Edith, thanks a lot for taking your time just to come here and share your wisdom with us. Welcome, and I'd just like to pass the floor to you.
Thank you, CM. It's really nice to be here. I'm glad to meet some new people and see some familiar faces as well. So I am just going to start by sharing my screen here. So bear with me here while I start the slideshow. Okay, so I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this very important topic that unfortunately nobody in school teaches you about, and that's about resumes. I'm a career counselor and I'm a certified professional resume writer, and I've been giving presentations like this for many years. And I can tell you that things have changed a lot in that time. They've changed a lot with technology in the past 10 years especially, but they've also changed a lot in the past year due to the pandemic. And these are all issues we're going to be talking about in the next hour. I also want to state that I'm going to be giving you a lot of information today, and you will be receiving a copy of the slides, hopefully. If not, I will be glad to share them with you. But I'm going to have a lot of talking points in addition to what's on the slides. So especially if you are an active job seeker, I suggest taking notes. Much of the information I'm going to be sharing today is not specifically about the things to include or not include in a resume, but it is what's called meta information, meaning specific information that you can use to structure and write your own resume. And my goal is to give you context into today's market and into the mind of employers so that you won't need to spend a lot of money to hire a professional resume writer. And good resume writing services cost upwards of $500, and that's a lot of money, especially if you're just starting out with your careers. What I'll be sharing with you today is information that you can use to position yourself to boost your resume so that it's modern, it's easy to read, and it gets through the computer screening systems so that you can have the best chance to land the interview that you want. So let's get started. What I'd like to touch on first today are challenges for international job seekers, notably specific challenges that you all are facing as you're job searching in the US. Common resume and job search mistakes. I'll be sharing with you some of the mistakes that I see job seekers making and what you're up against in terms of today's market. We're then going to get into the 6 steps framework we will then address some specific questions that you have and wrap things up. So international students and graduates really do have a tough road. I'm aware of that. The challenges that I have heard, the 3 big ones that I've heard are visa and sponsorship issues, language barriers, and competition. But I'd like to open up the floor to hear from you all about other challenges that you all may be facing. Does anyone have any others to add? I guess that means I've captured the big ones, right?
Yeah, just wanted to jump in and say, like, if you want to say something, just unmute yourself and just jump in. Just wanted to say, yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we don't have as much what is it called, connections with people around here who can help.
Okay. So meaning either networking contacts or even people within the career field who can help you to get those opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. Thank you.
What about experience in the industry?
Industry experience. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Okay. Okay, those are some good ones. So thank you for mentioning those. I want to go ahead and move on to some strategies here. And it looks like I have got, sometimes this Zoom will stop on me here, so I apologize. There we go. So these are some strategies I think that are applicable to all job seekers, but it's especially true for international job seekers. First, my suggestion is to start your job search early. Job searches are notorious for taking longer than we think that they will. Therefore, it's just important to be strategic, and that means starting before you think that you'll be ready. I suggest you actively start looking at least 6 months prior to graduation, but really the sooner the better. Networking and building connections. So somebody mentioned this from the previous slide, and I think we all do know the importance of this. People are more likely to hire or recommend you if they know you. And I do believe we have, Algorzin has another workshop on networking, if I'm not mistaken. So I cannot underestimate the importance of networking. This is the #1 job search strategy. It's one of the best things that you can do to get the type of job that you want. Next, you want to use your university resources. So every university has a career services office, and they also have career counselors to help you through this process. They also have access to employers, so companies who are specifically seeking out graduates from your university. So definitely important to develop relationships with these people. And again, I'd recommend doing this long before graduation, preferably 1 to 2 years before graduating. Next is research your field. This is something that many job seekers don't take adequate time to do, and it can really make a huge difference in the quality of opportunities that you receive. Who are the top employers in your field? What problems are they facing? And how can you help them in this area? What are these employers looking for in terms of job candidates? What's going on in your industry currently? What current events are happening? So the more prepared you are, the better you're going to be able to position yourself. And finally, you want to make sure that you know the US market and American style resumes. And this is going to be the main focus of our session together today. I would like to start here with some common resume mistakes that I have seen some very qualified, smart job seekers make over and over again. And the first one is using an outdated generic format. I still see resumes with an objective statement at the top, for example, and this maybe was the standard 30 years ago, but it does not work in today's market. Similarly, one resume is not going to work all of the time. Today's resumes do need to be targeted, they need to be specific, and they need to be tailored to each individual job that you're applying to. And then the American standard is a resume. It's not a CV. The biggest difference between these two is that a CV is many pages long, and it includes your entire work and education history. A resume is much shorter and it's much more targeted, and a resume does not need to include everything that you've ever done. That's another mistake I see a lot of people making. Resumes need to just include the information needed to get you the interview that you want. One point that is very important for me to mention here, again, it's about spelling and grammar mistakes. So I see a lot of this happening, unfortunately, on resumes, and it's very important that you proofread your resume, but MS Word is not going to catch every mistake. So if you do have somebody else who can help to proofread, that's going to be very beneficial to you. I'm putting social media here in parentheses because using social media or not using social media is not necessarily a mistake per se. However, social media very much influences the job search, and we're going to see that shortly. How you use social media is very important. Your social profile matters very much in today's world, and many people aren't mindful of their social profiles or how they connect with people. So we'll be sharing a few social media tips today as well. And all of these resume mistakes are things that you as a job seeker and as a resume writer can control. I want to talk now about what you are up against, and I'm going to be providing you this high-level overview of these areas first. And please note, I'm going to be discussing each of them in more detail throughout the course of this presentation. The first one I want to make note of is the competition. We live in an incredibly competitive world today. The world population is more highly educated than ever before, and as a result, there are more qualified candidates competing for every job. Next is online job boards. I want to mention Indeed.com. Many of you may be familiar with this website, Indeed.com. This is what's known as a mega job aggregator, and it means that Indeed takes information from a number of other websites and compiles it into one nice, neat location. So in theory, it's great because you don't have to go to multiple websites to job search. In reality, your chances of landing a job through Indeed are very, very slim just because of the sheer number of people who use this website. Next, I want to talk about applicant tracking systems, or ATS. These are the systems that scan and analyze your resume in an effort to select the candidates who are the best match for the job. So nearly every time you submit your resume online, it's going to be screened by an ATS. So some common ones are Workday, Taleo, and Smart Recruiters. The problem with ATS is that many qualified candidates can slip through the cracks, and I'll be talking about why shortly. The next is the 5-second scan. People, just because of sheer volume of job applicants, have very little time to read resumes. They're just scanning resumes. So if they can't find what they need in that first 5 seconds, it's very likely your resume will get tossed. And then finally is, I'm having a Zoom problem here again. So sorry, give me just a minute here. The next thing I wanted to mention here, though, is about the inconsistent advice that people may be receiving. So every job seeker, every career counselor, career coach, every recruiter, every HR manager has a preference on the information that they want to see on a resume. And as a result, you may be getting inconsistent advice from all of these people. Ultimately, the only opinion that's going to matter is the opinion of the person who is offering you the job. So the resume needs to include only the information that person wants to see. And I am sorry that I am, oh, there we go.
Can I help you somehow, Edith?
I think it's working now. Sometimes I don't know what it is with Zoom and my computer, but sometimes it freezes. So my apologies in advance for that. So I want to just make note of these factors here that you as an individual job seeker cannot control any of them, right? So these are some of the things that you're up against, and it's unfortunate, but it's the way that it is. We can't control it. So I want to pause here for a moment and ask the audience a question. What is the purpose of a resume? Please feel free to unmute yourself or respond in chat if you'd prefer.
My guess would be to make a first impression, most likely, rather than a,
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, making a first impression. Okay, any other thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that is for advertising ourselves to the company.
Okay, good guess here, advertising ourselves to the company. Okay, letting them know that you're interested in a particular position. Okay,
representing yourself in a single piece of paper.
Okay, presenting yourself on a piece of paper. Okay. Okay.
I would say, like, if you stand out in a crowd, like there's a lot of applicants, so stand out. You have to stand out in a crowd of people and like show what you represent.
Yes, that's a good one. So showing how you are, showing how you surpass the competition out there, right? Yeah.
Showing how you fit the company, which are taking the resume.
Okay. Showing what you can do for the company.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Those are actually all really good answers, but there's actually a much simpler answer to this one. And it is, and wouldn't you know it, here, it's to get the interview that you want. If you are consistently sending out resumes and you're getting no responses, or you're not getting the response that you want, something needs to change. It's time to reassess your resume and perhaps your job search process. So I want you to keep this in mind as you're writing the resume. The purpose is to get you the interview that you want. The best gauge of an effective resume: are you getting the interviews that you want? If you are, that's great. And I'd argue that there's very little else that you need to do. Now, if you're going on multiple interviews and you're not getting any offers, that's a different conversation. And it's a different set of skills that you're going to need to employ. But we're talking about resumes here today. So this is a question to ask yourselves. Are you getting the interviews that you want? And I'm going to take a guess that if you're here today, the answer to this question is probably no, or perhaps you just want to hear more about today's best practices. So I'd like to share with you the 6 steps to a brilliant resume. First, you want to make sure that you're understanding today's market. You can't write an effective resume unless you understand the context of the world in which we live. And that means in terms of your job search. Step 2 is to know your target. If you don't know what kind of job you want, or if you're targeting multiple types of positions, you can't write an effective resume. Step 3 is to thoroughly research your target. Many job seekers neglect this very important step, and as we'll see, it's vital to your success. Step 4 is identify your audience and connect with them. Your audience is going to be the people who will hire or recommend you for jobs. And Step 5 is to write accomplishments that will resonate with your audience. Again, many job seekers have a resume that is filled with job duties, not accomplishments. And it's resumes today do need to be accomplishment driven as much as possible so that you can stand out amongst all the other people who are applying for the same job that you are. Employers today don't care about a long list of job duties. They want to see what you accomplished in your past positions and how that can benefit them where they are right now. Finally, we move to step 6, which is structuring and writing your resume. And notice how this is the final step. Many people begin with this step, and it actually causes the job search to be much longer and more difficult. So if you follow these steps in order, your job search is actually going to be more efficient. It's going to be a lot easier, and you'll be more likely to obtain the position that you want in a shorter amount of time. So let's talk about the first step first, understanding today's job market. I'm going to be talking about online job boards, applicant tracking systems, social media, recruiters, and referrals. Oops. Okay, let's start with online job boards. First, I mentioned Indeed.com earlier. If you only use a job board like Indeed, you're not going to be as likely to obtain an interview. For every one person who is hired through an online job board, 12 are hired by an internal referral. And this is from online research gathered through the science of the job search. And I'm including this in my list of references on the last page of the slide so that you'll have access to that information. This goes to show you that despite all of the technology advances we've enjoyed for the past 20 or 30 years, people still will hire people they know or people whose opinions they trust over a stranger. Yet the majority of job seekers I work with tend to spend the majority of their time searching and applying for jobs online. And this, I can't stress enough how not inefficient this process is. And ultimately it's more of a waste of time. And I'm going to be talking shortly about referrals, but becoming a referral is the best job search strategy. But let me first cite my top 3 picks for online job searching. Glassdoor, this is known as the Yelp for the job seeker. Indeed, which we mentioned already, has 200 million unique visitors per month. That's a lot of visitors. These 2 sites are helpful for job seekers, not so much in terms, in my opinion, of actually applying to jobs, but they're very helpful for what the job boards and the job advertisements there suggest. In other words, the meta information. The literal information on job boards isn't always helpful, but what it suggests, again, the meta information is very helpful. For example, if you pay attention to how the job ad is structured, the requirements that the employer is looking for, the language that's used in the ad, all of these things can provide you clues as to what the employer is looking for. So the more information you have, the better you'll be able to structure your resume in a way that will get noticed. And I also want to cite LinkedIn here. We're seeing more and more actual job searching happening on LinkedIn, and I predict that this will continue. LinkedIn is still the best site for networking. What's even better than these 3 sites, however, are industry-specific websites. Every industry has networking and job sites that are specific to that industry. So for example, DICE, D-I-C-E, is a site for technology. Higher Ed Jobs is for jobs in colleges and universities. And idealist.org is a site with job listings in the nonprofit sector. And because these sites are targeted to specific industries, the quality of opportunities found here tend to be better, and employers who use these sites tend to have better quality hires than they do through mega job sites. So definitely take the time to find industry websites related to your field. Third, by far the best place to job search and apply for a job is directly via the company website. Companies don't have to pay to advertise on their own sites, and many times positions are listed there, but not elsewhere. Talking about applicant tracking systems now, less than 30% of resumes that are submitted online pass through the ATS. Big companies get thousands and thousands of resumes every day, for example. Microsoft reportedly receives 50,000 resumes per week. Google receives 70,000 resumes per week. There is no time for a human being to read each one. The ATS are designed to help to read these resumes, but in the process, they weed out a lot of very qualified candidates. 70% of resumes are not read by a human being. And this is for three main reasons. One is formatting issues. Applicant tracking systems will parse a resume into a digital profile, and in the process, a lot of information gets distorted or lost. Therefore, it's important to create an ATS-friendly resume. One of my favorite resources is JobScan, and the website is listed here, jobscan.co. And if you search their site, you will find several updated articles and examples of ATS-friendly resume formats. One thing to note about formatting, the ATS is not going to, many ATS still are not able to read charts or graphs or pictures, especially if they're using an outdated algorithm. And these are the things that the human eye is naturally drawn towards. So especially more creative type people will include these things in their resume, and in the process may inadvertently get weeded out because of that. So I definitely recommend checking jobscan.com for information on ATS-friendly formatting options. The other thing that you need to know about applicant tracking systems is that they choose the qualified candidates based on keywords. So what this means is that you could be the best candidate for that job, but if your resume doesn't include the proper keywords, it will never get seen by a human being and it'll get tossed. So one other thing that I really like about this website, JobScan, is it has an opportunity for you to copy and paste your resume, copy and paste the job description, and it will give you a printout of how likely your resume will be to pass through the applicant tracking systems, and it will give you some very targeted advice for improvement. I do believe you can get 5 free scans per month, so just use them wisely. You're not going to be able to go there all the time for every job you're applying for, but it is a really good resource just for that, for the keyword check. It is important that you customize your resume. Most people will tell you in this day and age, you need to customize your resume each time you send it out because each job description is different. So again, if you're using the same generic resume every time you apply for every job, that's the reason most likely that your resume is not getting through, because it doesn't have the proper keywords in it. I've given you a lot of information already, so I want to pause here to see if anyone has any questions on this that I can answer right now.
The first question was, I would like you to, like when you mentioned the industry specific section, you mentioned DICE, higher ed, higher ed job, and then there was a third one for NGOs, which
Oh, that was, oh goodness, what was that? That was the nonprofit idealist.org.
Okay, thank you. And
Sure.
then the other final question was, how do you find these sites? Especially when I think there's a time when you mentioned, I was just asking in general, how do you find these sites, and especially when it's tailor-made or industry specific, like let's say to one's.
Yeah, so so a simple online search can give you some of these websites that have job listings in your field. Also, if you are a member of a professional organization in your field, they should have a list of job search resources there with that organization as well.
Thank you.
I'm just going to check the chat here just to see if oh, there's a question that came through. Can you apply for a job 6 months before graduation, even if there's a bachelor's degree minimum requirement? So really the question here is, can I apply for a job if I don't meet the minimum education requirements? And the answer is absolutely yes, you can. And how I would use that to get through the applicant tracking systems is to say bachelor of, for example, Bachelor of Science expected December 2021. So in that sense, you're not lying on your resume, but if the education requirement is a search term for the applicant tracking system, it will allow you to pass through it. So yeah, so definitely put in expected graduation dates. So another question came through, what networking groups do you recommend for students and older job seekers? There are a number of networking groups out there for very specific niche industries, as well as groups of different kinds. The best place I would suggest to start is LinkedIn. And then if you're still looking for some and can't find any, please feel free to connect with me. I do have some thoughts for you on that. And I will go ahead and move on to the next slide now. We're going to be talking about LinkedIn. And if you do have a LinkedIn profile that's up to date with a professional picture, that's great. Unfortunately, that's not enough. You're going to need to first make sure that relevant keywords are included in your profile so that people can find you. You also need to be active on LinkedIn. For example, you want to join and participate in groups related to your industry, and this was related to the question that was asked earlier. You want to provide regular status updates. You want to participate in discussions. This is how you grow your reach and how you get people to notice you. The more active you are on LinkedIn, the higher up you will appear in a search. This is why one of the quickest ways for you to speed up your job search is to update your LinkedIn profile. And I do recommend that all professionals, whether or not they're actively job searching, have an active, up-to-date profile with a recent professional picture. Social media tips. I recommend being consistent across all social media platforms. Employers are still going to be likely to Google you before bringing you into an interview. Excuse me, you don't want any red flags that would cause an employer to reject you. Secondly, watch your tone. Your tone can make or break your chances to interview and land the job that you want. So you want to make sure you're appealing to your audience. You want to be professional at all times. It's best to err on the side of caution. For example, on LinkedIn, I recommend always personalizing your LinkedIn requests. Don't focus too much on a hard sell to an employer. What you want to do is try to get to know these people. It's a long-term strategy. Using LinkedIn is not going to result in any quick fixes. So it's a long game that you're playing here with LinkedIn. So it's not going to get you results right away. So you do want to take your time to build your connections and engage with them. Post meaningful articles, engage in discussions, show people that you've looked at their profiles and ask them for insights. There is a lot more that I can say about this, but we do have limited time here. But I do want to encourage everybody to take a social media workshop or class if you're unfamiliar, or if you need some tips on modern best practices for social media, because a lot does change regularly. And I cannot stress this enough, how important this is to the job search. I want to talk now about what recruiters want. Let me first say here that recruiters will tell you that they are searching in today's world very hard for talent, and it's very hard for them to find talent. Connecting with a recruiter, whether they work internally with one company or they're independent, working with a number of different companies, recruiters are the gatekeepers to the jobs. If you make it through the applicant tracking system, talking with a recruiter is the next step. And they can either become your advocate or they'll tell you that you're not qualified. So it's very important that you have a good relationship with your recruiter. Here's what recruiters want to see on your resume. They want to see a resume tailored to the open position. And we discussed this already. Recruiters don't have the time to read through all the details of your resume to find what they want. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them. Have a summary section at the top with your relevant skills. Have section headers with bullet points, and make sure you have a professional and readable font, and keep it at 10 to 12 points. Also remember the 5 seconds, the 5 second rule here too. Recruiters, again, don't have a lot of time to scan through and read every resume that comes through. So if they can't find what they want in that 5 seconds, they'll likely move on to the next candidate. So you have 5 seconds to make an impression. Okay, becoming a referral. Your best chance of landing an interview and a job is by becoming a referral. So even in the age of technology, people trust who they know. Referrals are not going to guarantee you a job, but they will increase your chances immensely. And a referral can be anybody. It can be a friend, it can be a former colleague, a teacher, a classmate, any person you know, either formally or informally. Referrals can also be a part of your formal recruiting program from your college or your university. A lot of companies now are offering bonuses for referrals, and it makes a lot of good business sense to do this because referrals almost always result in a better quality hire. So from a job seeker's perspective, this is why it's really helpful for you to constantly be engaging with your network so that when opportunities become available, you'll come to the top of people's minds. So I want to stop here again because we finished the first step, which is understanding today's market, and just want to address any questions that anybody might have about the market today.
How do you actually, this is Simone, how do you actually find out about the market? You go to the company website, but so how do you do that? How do you research the market?
Yeah, the company website, having a list of target companies is a really good strategy here, so that you can go to their site and read it through regularly to see what types of projects they're working on, and what industry trends are happening there, so that you can best position yourself. But there in my the last page of my slide, I do have some references for you to look at in terms of like recruiting and job search trends that are happening, that you can check out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, any other questions before we move on?
I had a quick question. When you were mentioning about writing a summary, did you mean writing a paragraph in some part of the resume?
Yes, so definitely you want to have a summary section at the top of your resume, and this would be in place of an objective statement. So anybody who has objective at the top of your resume, something like to obtain a challenging and rewarding position that utilizes my education and experience, you want to remove that right away, and you want to replace it with a summary. So the summary is just a brief overview of who you are and your top skills that you want the reader to be aware of. So it's giving them an introduction into who you are as a job candidate. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes as well. So thanks for that question.
And I had one more quick question as well. Some professions recommend to save the education part to the last part of your resume, and some say it's put it in the first. What would be your opinion about that?
Whatever information you are quote unquote trying to sell needs to go first. So the most important information needs to go first. If you are a recent graduate, for example, and you don't have a lot of related work experience, you may want to consider including your education first so that it's more prominent to the reader. However, as you gain experience, your education tends to become less and less important, so you can include it at the end. But good question.
Thank you.
Hello, as you I wanted to mention in terms of the summary, as you talk about it, it's just science towards it. Like, are there specific key things that you tend to mention in that summary about yourself, or?
Yeah, so so what I recommend with the summary is
the order, and also sorry to cut you short, the order.
Yeah, so the summary is going to go first right after your contact information. And my suggestion is to tailor your summary every time you send your resume out. So you should have a different summary for each resume. And that's an opportunity for you to include keywords that are specific to the job ad that you're applying to. And it should be, I mean, I would recommend that the summary is like the top third of the page on the resume. I also want to stress here that their resumes do not have rules. So there's no rule that says you have to have a summary. A resume is not a legal document like a job application. So you're not going to be signing it or dating it. So that's not meaning that you're going to be lying on your resume, of course, but you can pick and choose the most relevant information on your resume to include each time you send it out. And therefore, in my experience for the job seekers I've worked with, the ones who tailor their summaries each time they send out their resume to a different positions are the ones who are the most successful. So I hope that helps to answer your question.
Should I write the summary in a paragraph or in bullet points?
That depends. It depends on what your preference is, and it also depends on the job that you're applying to. One strategy that personally I like, and again, this is not going to work all of the time, but this seems to be the one that works the best for me and for a lot of job seekers I've worked with, is to read through a job description and find three themes from that job description, and then include those 3 themes in your summary with a blurb or an accomplishment about each. So for example, in a job I might be applying for, I can put down career assessments for one, presentations for another, and strategy for a third. And then it's going to be very easy for you to go in and change those 3 themes each time you apply for a different job. And that's going to be based on the job that you're applying to, because each one's going to be different. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry, I had this question to add on to his. So let's say on your summary, should you focus more on you in terms of you professionally, or you can also add you as a human being, as in general?
Okay, this is a really good question because it gets into objective skills versus subjective information. Resumes should not include subjective information about yourself as a human being. Stick to hard.
Sorry to cut you short as you continue. So you're just supposed to stick to your education and your work experience within the summary, that's all.
I'm not going to say work experience. I'm going to say any experience that you have that is accomplishments that you have that are related to the job ad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, any type of subjective information, you want to omit that from your resume. So what I was trying to say before is always stick to facts, hard, tangible accomplishments that you have that can be quantified whenever possible. And I'm going to be talking about this again shortly. All right, so thank you all very much for the questions. I'm going to move on now to the second step in the resume writing process, and this is to know your target. Now that you have a better understanding of today's market and how resumes are screened, you need to make sure that you have a very clear career target. I've worked with a lot of job seekers who are targeting multiple types of jobs or are not sure exactly what type of job they're looking for. So in today's world, it's impossible to write a good, effective resume without answering this question. So the clearer you are with the type of job that you're looking for, the easier this process is going to be. It's going to be helpful for you to not only know that you're looking for an accounting position, for example. Are you looking for an accounting position with a Fortune 500 company, with the US government, or with a local government agency, or with a nonprofit? Because I can guarantee you that how you structure and write your resume and the different types of accomplishments they're going to be different according to these different organizations. If you're not clear of what your job target is, that is totally okay. Many of us are still not clear. We're still trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, and I'll put myself in that category too. There are a number of resources available to help you with this. What you can do is you can start with an honest self-assessment. You can do this on your own. There's a number of resources out there at your local library and online to help you with this process, to help you narrow down the type of job that you want to work towards. And you can also look for a career counselor or a career coach to guide you through this process. I want to move on now to the third step, which is research. And thorough research is essential to a successful job search. A lot of very smart job seekers omit this very important step. The benefits of having an effective resume can greatly improve your chances of having a resume that gets noticed if you put the time in to researching your target. So you want to browse through the company website to get an idea of the company overview and history, specifically the About Us page. Look for their mission statement, their values and keywords, and incorporate all of these into your resume. You also want to learn more about the products, their products and services. Google the company to find news articles about their priorities, current projects and trends. And also, this is a great way to find out about challenges that they may be facing. Be sure also to locate who the leadership is and the key decision makers, and check out these people's LinkedIn profiles and read about these people. The more you know about these areas, the better you're going to be able to present yourself properly on your resume and answer questions during your phone screen and interview. So again, researching is very, very important. And I know this question was asked earlier about how to go about research. And again, I would suggest starting with the company website, reading about these things, overview, history, About Us page, try to get an idea of projects that they're working on. And then you can also start on LinkedIn and follow the company, see what types of updates they're posting, and then chime into those discussions if possible. Again, this is going to help to grow your reach here if you're able to do that. The next step is to identify your audience and make connections. And this is kind of like a marketing campaign here when you're seeking out new job opportunities. It's essential to identify your audience. Your audience are the people who will hire or recommend you from the list that you've hopefully developed from your research. You want to target influencers and thought leaders in your field. You want to ask your network connections for introductions to people who can help you better understand your target industry. If we are connected on LinkedIn, for example, or if you connect with me on LinkedIn and you see that I'm already connected to somebody who is in a leadership position in a company that you're targeting, you know, you can ask me to make an introduction on your behalf, for example. That's one of the purposes of LinkedIn. And I think, in my experience, people are especially willing to connect during these difficult times. So do take advantage of the wealth of information that's available within your network. In addition to checking out LinkedIn profiles, try to become a member of a professional group that these people are also in. A lot of LinkedIn groups I've noticed are silent these days. Excuse me, but some of the Facebook groups and Twitter groups are pretty active. So that's another way to connect with people. So you want to also develop an appropriate message and strategy, excuse me, to connect with these folks. I'm getting a frog in my throat here. So develop an appropriate message and strategy to connect with these influencers in your field. Understanding and addressing audience motivation is the first step towards making your connection. Alrighty, so every hiring manager has heard from a job seeker, I'm the best person for this role because of my education experience, whatever, countless times. What's less common for employers to hear is job seekers getting into the mind of the employer and acknowledging their challenges and sharing a way that they can help. And in order to do this, in order to get into the mind of the employer and understand it, you have to try to understand it from their point of view, and you have to have that good research there to back you up on this. Again, understanding and addressing audience motivation is the first step in making your connection. This is also going to help you to narrow down the unique advantage that you have over all that competition out there. Because again, most job seekers don't take the time to do this, to truly understand the challenges from the employer's point of view. So we're moving on to the next step here, step 5, which is writing your accomplishments. We've talked about how important accomplishments are on a resume. If you have a resume that's filled with job duties, and for each position, you have like kind of a laundry list of 10 or 20 bullet points, each with a different job duty, you probably, I would suggest rethinking that process. It is a big mistake in today's world. You do want to focus on your achievements, not your duties. So think about what made you successful. Again, from the employer's point of view, and you'll already know this if you've done your due diligence and done your research, you're already going to have an idea of what these employers are looking for. And then you're going to be able to go into your background and pick the areas that you think will get you most noticed. At this point in the resume process, you'll have a good idea about this. So think about your success stories. Think about the success stories that you can share in accomplishment form. Whenever possible, you want to try to quantify your accomplishments. How much money did you make? How much money did you save? How many clients did you gain? For example, whether we like it or not, in today's world, we are evaluated by numbers. Numbers build credibility, and they do stand out to recruiters. So let's take a closer look on the next slide and how to begin thinking about what your accomplishments are. A lot of people think that they don't have any accomplishments, and this is absolutely false. Everybody has accomplishments. So these are some questions that you can ask yourself to try to draw out some of those accomplishment stories. I'm not going to read through all of these, but just by looking at them, hopefully they can get you thinking about ways that you've made an impact. These questions can also help you to prepare for an interview. The website that I mentioned earlier, jobscan.com, also has some really good updated articles on writing and quantifying accomplishments. Okay, and finally, we're at the final step in our resume writing process. And this is, excuse me, the question that many of you had been asking before when we were talking about the summary section on your resume. I'm going to get into this in a little more detail now. This is where all of your hard work comes together. I suggest that you have 3 main sections in your resume. First is the summary, which captures the reader's attention. A resume summary provides the reader with a brief overview of your career accomplishments and qualifications before they read any further. So again, the summary section should be geared to the specific job ad that you're applying to. So the most impactful information goes in the summary section. Without the right information in the summary, it is very likely that the reader is going to toss your resume. So this is really your chance to make a good impression. Again, I can't stress this enough either. Make sure you're thinking about this from the employer's point of view, not your point of view. Think about all that competition out there and what makes you the best candidate for this position over all of these other people, all of these 200 or so people who are applying for that same job. The second section is the experience section. This is where you list your relevant experience and accomplishments that resonate with your audience. And the third section, the education section, degree and training that supports your job target. Now, This question was asked earlier as well. What information goes first? Whatever information is most important is what goes first. This means, again, that if you are a recent graduate without a lot of relevant work experience, you may want to consider including your degree before the experience section. I'd like to also mention the use of action verbs in a resume. It's much more impactful to say, initiated ongoing weekly happy hour events that grew from word of mouth, increasing customer base and generating over $2,000 in additional revenue per month, instead of responsible for happy hours and bringing in new customers. This previous example also provides the reader with more context into your job, and it provides a quantifiable accomplishment. So we're coming to the end of the presentation here, and I'd really like to mention, and I can go back to any of these slides that you would like, but I do want to mention these 3 important points that you all need to be aware of when you're writing your resume and conducting your job search. First is know yourself. Know what type of job you're looking for. The more specific, the better. Know your strengths and work on improving your weaker areas. Second is know your audience. Take the time to research your industry, connect with leaders in your field, and gain a clear understanding of the challenges that your targeted employers are facing so that you can address them both in the resume and in the interview. Finally, you want to tailor your resume every time you send it out. One of the most efficient things that you can do is, at least, as I mentioned before, to tailor your summary section of your resume so that it aligns with the specific, with what the specific employer is looking for. This is a list of additional references that I've cited throughout this presentation, and several books and websites that have really good examples of modern resumes that have gotten job candidates interviews. And lastly, this is my contact information. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And also, if you do connect with me on LinkedIn, please be sure to personalize your message to me and mention this presentation so that I know where you met me. And I'd like to open up to any other questions that you might have at this time.
Hey, I'd like to just jump in real quick. What a presentation, Edith. I mean, I learned so much in today's session, to be honest. Like, I cannot imagine how much students learned. But yeah, great session. Yeah, I think we can probably open it up for questions, question and answer. I think we have like around 15 to 20 minutes.
I had a quick question. Hi, I'm Sanjeev Dahal. And my question was, with resume, a lot of the job seeking companies, they optionally ask you to write a cover letter. How important are cover letters?
Oh, that is a great question. There are some people who are saying that cover letters are no longer important. I'm a little old school myself, so I personally would never send a resume without a cover letter. And for me, my strategy is to type a specific cover letter into the body of an email and then attach the resume. But now that you're applying through ATS, they usually have an option for including both a cover letter and a resume. Sometimes there is no option for including a cover letter. My advice is that whenever there is an option to include a cover letter, to do so, because that's more of a chance for you, first of all, to make a personal connection to the reader, but also to include additional keywords that can help your resume pass through the applicant tracking systems.
Thank you. I would like to ask another question in addition to that. But regarding the cover letters, what should like it look like from what I guess from how I write it, I usually go online and then look for a template, and then I go off of that template to make it more quote unquote professional. But like, is there any other steps that I should be following while writing a cover letter?
A couple of things that you mentioned here. First, getting information from templates online. I want to stress here that all of the information, I've seen some really, really bad information on cover letters and resumes online. So first of all, don't believe everything that you read online. The reference materials, the reference page that I have is really good. It's really up to date. Relevant information. So there are some good examples of cover letters there on those. The next thing that there's no one way to write an effective cover letter, and a lot of recruiters will tell you specifically that they aren't going to read a cover letter. So it's hard to answer that question. I would approach it basically the same way that you would a resume. Just try to research the company, try to write it to a specific person if possible. And once you kind of get an idea of what they're looking for in that position and what that person is looking for, I think you'll be better able to address those challenges in a cover letter.
Okay, thank you. Just to confirm, so it should be more objective than subjective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Got it.
You want to omit subjective information.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, CM, I'm having I'm getting the little like what do you call it? Colored roll of death, I call it, or roll of life, circle of life there. So my screen was starting to freeze again. I don't know what's happening here, but I stopped sharing, but I can share again in just a moment.
No. I think this one is fine also. Yeah, good to see. Like we can see other people. But yeah, I think the new update of Zoom is a little bit glitchy for everyone. So no worries.
Yeah.
So any questions, guys?
One quick question from me. So you talked about the adding professional experience and education, and how about the adding the soft skills and hobbies in the resume? Is it important?
Great question. My answer to that is you can include soft skills only if they are part of the job description and include them within an accomplishment format. So I would not suggest like having a separate section that lists soft skills, but try to incorporate them into your accomplishment stories. But good question there.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the notes I actually wanted to share, this is something we do after every class or session, Edith, is that like sharing the small wisdom we, like before session and after session, how much we have changed and what is the small wisdom, very interesting insight we have learned within that session. So if you don't have questions, guys, you can also share whatever you found very interesting or you learned as a wisdom. I call them wisdom nuggets. So feel free to share those as well. It's always good to share, and that's how we memorize things. Just to give a little bit of context, I mean, for those who know Algorithm, obviously you know Algorithm, but for those who are new, we are a career bootcamp for immigrants and international students based in the US. So these are students who are graduating from US schools or came through some other kind of visas to US, and they are trying to land jobs in the US industry, and we help them with that. And we bring industry leaders from like different industries and try to help students from all aspects, technical, career, and all those things. It's like amazing sessions. So like I'm so grateful. just one thing, we can still do, like, we should still do some little bit of Q&A, but I just posted a form on the right side, just a feedback form. So feel free to submit your anonymous feedback. This really helps us improve overall our experience. But yeah, just wanted to just share that thought, but we can go back to question and answer. So guys, question and answer or wisdom, if you want to share, feel free to. Aman, go for it.
This is Aman. I just have a quick question to edit. How important does certifications play a role? Especially, is it a good idea to have certifications of the employer that you are applying, or does it you can have general certifications?
Certifications would be just applicable to your field. So if so for example, in technology, I think certifications are very important for different areas in the technology sector. They're going to be less important in other sectors too. So this is part of, when you're conducting your research there, part of the research for you to understand what certifications are needed, or if any certifications or education is needed.
Is it going to be quantifiable, like you said, more of?
Sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Will it count towards quantifiable rather than subjective?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering.
So yeah, I had a quick question. This is Sushant. So you mentioned that in order to make a resume stand out, you mentioned we need to tailor one's resume according to the job description, do research at the company. My question is that what are some of the immediate turnoffs for recruiters when they see a resume? Is there something that one should really avoid, and what are some of the bad things you should never include in your resume?
Yes, that is a great question. One of the biggest pet peeves of recruiters is having just a list of job duties. So like you have your experience section and you worked at ABC company. And then I've seen job seekers, they have like answered phone, sent emails, typed correspondence, like whatever. And these, again, they're all job duties and they don't tell the reader anything about you. So that's one pet peeve. And then, so typically when you have bullet points, when you're listing bullet points, when you have, the more bullet points you have, the less likely somebody is going to be to read it, right? So you want to keep your bullet points, you want to minimize them as much as possible. I would keep them at 3 to 4 bullet points each section if possible. Another pet peeve is that objective statement at the top of the resume. So a lot of people are still using an objective statement, right? And it's, even if it says to obtain a project manager position at ABC company, you don't want to, it doesn't work. I mean, first of all, it's very, very outdated. And secondly, it doesn't work well with how the ATS are configured. So, so we want to omit that and include a summary instead. And then resumes that are pages and pages in length, 4 or 5 pages in length. And then again, it doesn't tell them anything about you. So, so I think one of the best things, because the amount of information that recruiters get is so extensive, you have to try to be memorable to that person. And sometimes that means making a personal connection to them. With that said, a lot of recruiters, they are salespeople. And so I've heard these like horror stories from job seekers who've worked with recruiters, and they, they're just trying to, they're trying to source an electrical engineering position, and you're nowhere near that type of job, right? And so, yeah, there are, I admit that there's a lot of very clueless recruiters and unhelpful recruiters out there, but it's the same in any field. You know, there's good people and there's bad people. So sometimes you just have to sift through all of those, you know, unhelpful people to find a good one. And there are good ones out there. Definitely recommend connecting with them on LinkedIn and following some of the ones who are very active on LinkedIn, because they do share really good information almost daily there if you connect with the right people. So hopefully that helps to answer your question.
Yeah, that definitely does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one quick follow-up question. What are your thoughts on putting a photograph on a resume?
No.
Yeah, that's what I expected. I just wanted to
no photograph on the resume. Keep it for your LinkedIn profile.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Great question, guys.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
While others can gather some questions or thoughts, I wanted to share it is like one of the things which I really loved. I mean, I took so many notes. I personally have like 5 or 6 major points I've learned today. But one of the things which I keep saying to the students and just to myself, and also glad that you like it resonates with me, the thing that I learned something called networking equals to giving, which means that whenever we are trying to network, the goal of networking is that I'm trying to help that person. So that framework completely changes why we look for jobs. We look for jobs because we are trying to help the employer solve a problem or solve a duty. Whenever we go in that route, it becomes more of a we trying to help them and not they trying to help me from my desperation. And that small little tweaking changes the entire chemistry, the dynamics, everything. So yeah, so thank you for sharing the same message.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looking at it from that point of view, when somebody connects with us, and you know, we can tell when they're trying to just get something from us, right? Or they're trying to sell something. And I mean, I don't think any of us really wants to come across that way to other people, but unfortunately we do unintentionally. So yeah, it's just something, thank you for mentioning that. It's just something to be mindful of.
Very difficult when your visa status is going away and you have to leave the country in 3 months. It's very, very difficult to have that mind ready. But yes, definitely.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Any other question, guys? Questions, thoughts?
Yeah, you know, along those lines, since I'm not hearing from anyone, we still have a couple minutes left. I can share a little nugget, as you mentioned, because a few years ago, I got laid off from my job, and it was absolutely devastating to me. I mean, I'd worked with people who'd been laid off themselves, and then I'm the one who's going through this process, feeling every emotion that everybody else felt, you know, going from anger to depression to desperation, you know, in the matter of hours. So I really do understand how this whole process works from a personal standpoint. And I was also overwhelmed by the number of people who were willing to help me through that process. And I have to believe it's because I also have that mindset of trying to help other people. And it just goes to show that there is such a thing as karma, I think. So you know, if you have that mentality of trying to help, you know, everybody here in this session can be a potential networking contact here. And if we each try to help each other, you know, that this same kind of mentality can be spread.
Absolutely great. Like I just love this topic of discussion. And yeah, also something same message, also I say it in a different way. I understand is that instead of becoming short-term selfish, becoming long-term selfish, is that when you're short-term saying selfish, you're just thinking that, okay, I'm going to take some gain from this person instantly. And you're thinking that, oh, the other person will not even notice I took something from them. But everyone is smart. Everyone notices. But if you're actually trying to help them, eventually it comes back. It's just a, I don't know, universal law, I guess. So it's always a gain for the long term. So yeah.
Yeah, so true. That's so true. The long-term strategies are what's going to win ultimately. Yeah. Does anyone have any other thoughts or anything that was particularly helpful for you? I'm seeing in the chat here that the ATS was very helpful for a lot of people. Please definitely check out JobScan, jobscan.co. Very, very good resource. It's one of my favorite resources out there. Anything else that was especially helpful or not helpful, or anything you'd like to share before we go?
I would say the summary section that you said on the top, that was pretty helpful, because I used to think the objective should go.
Okay.
And like the way you can stand out from the crowd, like you mentioned.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Okay then.
Yeah, guys. Sorry, was someone saying something?
I think for me, the way she solidified the point of networking, in terms of when she said, as much as you pass the system, you pass the machine, you still have to be referred when you get to the overall end. If nobody knows you, it's still quite a challenge.
Oh, that brings up another point. I'm not sure if I can hone in really on this one, because it's never, unfortunately, the most successful, the most experienced, or the most qualified person who gets the opportunity. It's the person who's found the easiest.
Yeah, we have so much overlap in thinking. It is amazing. I say this also in a similar kind of way, is that, like, if you are a A- player and you're competing with A+ players, but you being an A- player, but everyone knows you, you will get the job because you just have a stronger trust network. I will hire a developer who is a A- developer just because I know this person, and I know that I can work with him or her and they will improve. So yeah, great. I think we're kind of near the close, near the end. So guys, feel free to like share the feedback, would mean a lot. I'm already seeing some feedbacks which are like redoing the session, like doing more follow-up sessions, Edith. So like, but Edith, thanks a lot. You have so much experience. I personally learned so much today. And thank you for like taking your time and like really being generous with the students and sharing all your wisdom. What are the best ways for students to connect? I think LinkedIn you already said. And did you want to say any final thoughts, any advice, any last wrap up things before we end it?
Oh, well, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. I know I threw a lot of information at you today, and I could just talk and talk and talk on this topic for forever. When I was putting this presentation today, I actually, cut out a lot of things I was going to say, because it's really overwhelming, and I understand how overwhelming it is. So I'd love to come back and talk more about that. But in the meantime, would love for you all to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just make sure you send a personalized message.
Yeah, use the skill you learned today.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who attended, we'll send all the recorded video, and I think like probably also the slide if Edith can share, like we'll definitely send the recorded video. And as Edith said, like feel free to reach out to her through email or LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, and thank you again, Edith. This has been really, really amazing. So
excellent. Yes, thanks so much. All right.
Thank you, guys. Have a
All
good
right,
night.
take care, everybody. Stay safe, be well.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Thank you. Bye.